I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be succeed and be you in spite of what your critics have to say. And as I often like to discuss, what I found in my life is that people who are high achievers, who are used to succeeding, people who come up with paradigm shifting ideas, people, when you look at things like Mark Zuckerberg, who started Facebook, or Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who started Google, or the founders of Twitter, when you look at people who are setting things or creating things or building things, they're kind of way ahead of their time or out there in front of other people. It's like, I mean, look at it this way. Next time you're in a meeting, maybe wherever you work or maybe your own company, just observe. What's interesting is that at most company meetings, good ideas usually last about 7 seconds before somebody at the table has to throw in some kind of negative feedback. Look at it this way. When you create something, say you write a poem or you write a little short story or you come up with an idea for a business and then you share it with one of your friends or your family or your colleagues, it's interesting. You say something simple like, "What do you think of this?" 99% of the time when you ask people their opinion on something, for whatever reason, they think, okay, let me go and find something wrong with your idea. It's like very often or very seldom will you see a comment or feedback come back from somebody where you just simply say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of my idea? They're not going to go, well, I like this, I like that. Usually they'll start going, well, I don't like this, or it probably won't work because of this, or that's usually what you get. And the interesting thing is that most people who are too weak to follow their own dreams will always find a way to discourage yours. There's a great book that I highly encourage you to read that I read several years ago. It's called The Tipping Point. And it's interesting from a perspective of leadership because the word lead means to go first. And a leader leads by example, not by force. And when you look at the majority of the people in this world, you've got the small group, the 1 to 3% at the top that are the trendsetters. Those are the ones that have no problem going against the grain or coming up with the latest fad or the greatest idea or the best pair of shoes to wear, or a cool shirt to wear, or a cool invention that you should have. I mean, look at something like the smartphone, such as like the iPhone or the iPad. When those products came along, they pretty much they created a whole new category in and of themselves, and they were very disruptive. I mean, when you look at technology, like what it's doing to all kinds of industries, brick and mortar stores, retail stores, when you look at companies like what Amazon.com has done to retailing, and you see how just a small group of people or 1 or 2 people get together and they have this great idea, and all they really have is a passion for it. And they want to build it just because. I mean, if you've ever watched little kids when they get into something, or like you give them a box of Legos and they're like, I'm going to build a spaceship, and that's all they focus. They're totally consumed, and it's like the rest of the world doesn't exist to them. And that's the beauty of like what I love being an entrepreneur, is that every day I get to wake up and do what I want to do. I get to talk about things that are inspiring to me or that are exciting to me or that I think are important based upon the questions and the challenges that my audience is running into or the types of things that people need help with. And I say this all the time. It's like when you're going to choose a career or you're going to maybe change a career or a business, is that you got to do something you really have a passion for, that you have a burning desire to do. Because the world is full of people who are not pursuing their dreams, who are not having the kind of relationships that they really want, who are not working the kind of jobs or careers that really excite them or jazz them, or their finances suck, or they don't have the kind of friends or people in their life that they really want. And so when someone in their peer group starts to stretch beyond their boundaries or their comfort zone, most people tend to attack or put them down. Like I said, it's like next time you're in a meeting at your company, It's just watch when people when there's something everybody's trying to come up with a solution. It's like most good ideas usually last about 7 seconds before somebody comes up with why that's a stupid reason or why that won't work. Because the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions that you consistently ask yourself. Like I said, it's interesting when you ask people for their opinion on things. Hey, what do you think of this? 9 times out of 10, they'll come up with something negative to say. Why? Just people think, oh, I've got to look for a reason why this won't work. It tells you the internal psychology of the average person in this world, which unfortunately isn't that good. And the reason why I bring this up, and I've got a really awesome poem from Mother Teresa that I'm going to share with you, because when you've got something you have a burning desire to do, the only person that is really going to be 100% convinced of it is going to be yourself. And like what Will Smith said, he said, before anybody else in the world will believe it, you have to believe it yourself. It's your passion and your excitement and your congruency with your purpose that will convert all of the naysayers over. And at the end of the day, like what I love from that book, The Tipping Point, I highly recommend, you definitely should read it, is that there's usually just a small group of people who set the trends. And they're the boundary breakers. They're the ones that are not afraid to be different. And then what happens is some of the other people start noticing what the unique people are doing, whether, say, it's a clothing trend or a pair of shoes that comes in. It's like if you ever watch these things where things just, it starts out as a little fad, people are kind of talking about it, and all of a sudden, within a matter of weeks, everybody's got to have one. Like in the 1980s, it was like the Cabbage Patch doll. And then in the 90s, it was a Tickle Me Elmo doll. And like today, there's like just all, when you look at any kind of a new technology product, a smartphone, when that came along, I mean, you look at like BlackBerry, and they were pretty much had the market cornered. And all of a sudden, the smartphone comes along, and iPhone comes along, and creates a whole new category. And then here, the company, the BlackBerry company, I mean, they're having a problem just staying relevant, and their market share is plummeting. It's exciting to look at those things because, like I said, what happens, you get a small group of people that start doing them, or start doing the fad, or buying the product, or living or using the service, or in my particular case, my life coaching business, that uses things that I teach. And then eventually it gets to a point, because most people, I think it's like in the book The Tipping Point, I think it was like 50 to 60% of the population as a whole has a herd mentality. In other words, they won't adopt anything until pretty much they see that everybody else is doing it. And so there's a great quote by author, I can't say his name, Schopenhauer. He's a German philosopher, lived a couple hundred years ago. He said, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as self-evident. And so I've got this poem that I want to read to you from Mother Teresa, because it's so powerful, because of what you're going to encounter along your journey of life. And that's why it's important that you choose something that you have a passion for. And just remember that when people react to you in a negative way, or they get angry, they get pissed off, or they get offended, like I deal with that a lot in my line of work. People get offended at the way I talk. And the funny thing is that most people that I encounter in the world talk just like I do. It's only a small percentage of people that tend to be politically correct, especially people in the media. And what you should always remember is that behind anger is always fear. And so when you see somebody reacting very negatively or getting angry, realize that they're afraid of something. And by asking quality questions, you can figure out what it is, especially if you're trying to influence them to buy a product, or you're trying to influence them to your way of thinking. The idea is to find a way to put yourself in their shoes, to walk in their shoes and look through their eyes and see what they see, think what they think, and feel what they feel. Because once you can understand them, just like McNamara, who was a former Secretary of Defense, said, he says, once you can understand and empathize with your enemy, then and only then can you work to build bridges with them, to find some common ground. And so Mother Teresa's quote that I think is so awesome. It's great to read in times where things are tough, or you're getting shit from people around you and you feel a little demoralized. So she says, people are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyways. That's so true. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyways. What you spent years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyways. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyways. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. And I love this last part. She says, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. Now, like when you look at a company like Apple and what Steve Jobs ingrained in their DNA was to focus on doing a few things really awesomely. In other words, when you look at Apple's products, they only have 4 or 5 product lines. And that's the whole company. All of those thousands and thousands of employees are focused on making the absolute best technology products in that particular area that they do. And I've got one final quote that I want to leave from you from Marianne Williamson. It's from her book, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Course in Miracles. So it's a really powerful quote. She says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. It's so powerful. It's just like what I said at the tipping point, is most people have the herd mentality. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Just like I talk about my articles about creating attraction with women. Women want to feel safe and comfortable. And when they get around a guy who is comfortable in his own skin, who has a good attitude, a smile on his face, he doesn't give a shit what other people think, he doesn't let anything get under his skin, he's just simply decided that wherever he is, he's going to have a great time, and he's going to have fun, and he's not going to let anyone or anything diminish his happiness in any ways. When women get around this alpha male type of energy, it makes them feel comfortable to be who they are. That's why women love to be around and date, hook up with the captain of the football team, or very successful alpha type men, because these are the type of men that are living their life and living their truth and are comfortable in their own skin, and they don't care what other people think of them, and they won't tolerate other people being in their presence who try to diminish them in any kind of way or capacity. And when you get a woman around a guy like this, when she comes into your presence and you're emanating this kind of energy, you give her permission to be yourself just like everybody else that's around you. That's something to think about. So if you want my help, the quickest way to get my help is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, or just follow the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.